Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 440. I'm your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com. We're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed and best-selling children's book author and illustrator, Liza Woodruff.
Hello.
Liza, how
Hi.
you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. So this is exciting. We mentioned it before we started recording that I always, I specialize in talking to children's book authors and artists, and also Vermont authors and artists. And you are both.
Yes.
See?
Amazingly. I'm
Exactly.
one of several. There are a bunch of us up here, actually.
I know. It's just like you cannot walk down the street in Vermont without bumping into someone that writes a book or illustrates a book here.
It's
There's
incredible.
something about the Vermont air. There's something about the Vermont air that inspires authors and artists,
I
I
think
see.
I wonder if people come up here just because it's so beautiful, and
It
people who
is.
are artistically inclined maybe just want to be around beauty.
Right. I know. And it's especially because some of your books have a little bit of a nature sense to them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that came from living up here. I mean,
Right.
really, the Once Upon a Winter Day book was directly inspired by walks out my back door.
And you started off as an illustrator, correct?
I did. Yep. I graduated from art school. After going to college, I went back and went to art school, and right after that, I got my first job right out of school and illustrated many books by other authors. And at that time, I was doing a lot of textbook work. I eventually had sort of full time work just illustrating, but things, the landscape changed, and and so that was harder to do eventually.
You went from an illustrator, but now you've kind of gone into the transition from illustrator to author illustrator.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Which I love. I did that. I had never thought of myself as a writer. I love books and I love to read, and um but I wasn't into creative writing that much, and so really didn't have much confidence, and so I didn't really consider it. But then a couple of projects um that just didn't feel right for me, that I tried to work on, and I just decided the best way to work on something that really felt suited to me was to write it myself. And so
Mm.
I just worked at it and worked at it until um, I got something that was halfway decent, but with a lot of help from other people and my agents and editors and things.
So 2016 was your debut book, Emerson Barks.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what I love about Emerson Barks is like because you're a visual person. Did you design the cover of that book as well?
I did. It was a collaboration for sure. I had a
Okay.
great designer who worked on that with me, and I think she knocked it out of the park. I love it. I did that little drawing and I had him barking, but there were a whole bunch of sketches for that. And
Mm.
yeah, I think she came up with that. I don't even know how she did the lettering, but it's almost like she distorted the font and then used it as a stencil to kind of paint through it. It's super
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh, and so how many books have you been able to do that you are the author illustrator for as comparison to just being an illustrator for?
So Emerson Barks, A Quieter Story, Once Upon a Winter Day, um, Phil's Big Day. So that's four, and my fifth is under contract right now, and I am working on it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Are you on like an NDA? Can you not is it
I don't know,
exclusive?
because I sort of hold the copyright. I think it's just sort of probably good form not to talk too much about it, but I can tell you, um, I can tell you it's a story about a little boy who goes to school and his day just starts off really badly. He goes to school and things just go downhill from the point where he discovers they have a substitute teacher, and he just gets in a worse and worse mood during the day and sort of transforms into an alligator. Um, and you'll have to wait until 2027 to find out how it ends, but it's a good ending. All ends well, and it's constructive, and I just think, kids have big feelings, and
Right.
especially right now, I feel like there's a lot to talk about, and
Right. And so I'm really curious as well. Is that so? You put together, you write children's books, and there's a idea, and I see this a lot where people write children's books and thinking, I can write a children's book. How hard can it be? Writing a children's book is extremely hard.
it is extremely hard. Yeah. I mean, lots of people have great stories and, told orally to your kids at bedtime and stuff is different than sitting down and trying to really make it tight and um, pull together a plot and make, there're just a lot of moving parts in such a small nowadays the word count for a picture book is down to something like between 2 and 700, I would say, is like,
Wow.
yeah. And so it's like trying to write a novel in a poem format, in
Right.
a way, or yeah.
Since Emerson Barks, they came out 9 years ago. What have you learned about yourself as an author since Emerson Barks?
Yeah. um You know, I have discovered that things that relate to my experiences in my life personally are the ones that really stand out from the other ideas. And, there are things that I have a vivid imagination and I can craft a lot of stories, but until they have some element that really resonates for me, um, I, they don't come to life, I
Mm,
guess I could say.
right. And how is it different between illustrating for an author and illustrating your own books?
Oh, it's really fun doing my own because I can kind of go back and forth into the text and I can change the text, or like, you know, one of the rules about doing picture illustrating picture books is show don't tell.
Mm,
Well, writing and illustrating picture books. So, if you've described something in the text and you realize as you're drawing that you could put it into the illustrations, then you can just edit it right out of the text and draw it right into your illustrations. So that's been really fun. And then the I mean, I also enjoy working on other people's books because you don't have their input and you sort of bring this whole other um, just your vision to it, and together it makes something like that neither of you expected, sort
mm.
of, which is kind of cool. But you probably have covered this in your shows, but a lot of people are surprised to learn that authors and illustrators aren't usually in contact while working on a project.
Yeah, and I found that fascinating. Is that basically it's the publishers kind of match up folks, the agents and that, right?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, and the publisher really wants they try to kind of keep things civil between
Mhm.
they sort of um, I imagine them kind of filtering comments from after they send my sketches off to the author, maybe, and because sometimes you will get comments back like, well, the author had thought this would be the big scene or something like that. And yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah, they're both great, but I really do love working as author and illustrator on my own things because I feel like I've got complete control and can really,
Right.
yeah.
And And so at that point too, when you do your own, when you illustrate your own books, how important then is the editor involved in that, having that second set of eyes?
They are removed from the creative process itself, but they are really excellent at going in and catching things that I
Right.
haven't. For example, like continuity
Mm.
things. Well, I was just on the phone with my editor talking about, well, look at this sketch. This is the classroom. This is their main classroom. And if you're showing it again here, there was this whole like outside sink where they were washing their hands. And she caught it, and I just didn't, I didn't really see it. But I mean, yeah, and comments that really transform a book, like, well, what if this action came first? And they just have the experience to know what's
Huh.
really going to um, make something work, I think.
Right. And because you started illustrating back, your first book then would have been Amanda Bean's Amazing Dream. That was back in 1998. I graduated college in 98 too. See?
Yeah. Yeah, so what happened with that was I graduated art school. One of my professors put me in touch with a person who became my agent,
Hmm.
or artist rep, illustration rep, and she had a client who was working on this book, Amanda Bean, and for some reason they had to back out, and there I was, and they asked me if I could do a sample, and so I took over, and then I was off and running after that. And believe it or not, I still get royalty checks from that book.
Really?
I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, it's a great book because it's a math story. It stands on its own as both like a math lesson and as just a story. It's cool.
And so you seem to focus a lot also on do you prefer drawing people or animals?
Well, I really do love drawing animals, I will say. Um,
I
I
see
I
that.
have a slight preference for drawing animals because I feel like people know how people are supposed to look, but people don't. You have a little more flexibility when you're drawing animals, and I love animals so much. So
And also too, I noticed. So one of the things we mentioned before, like you live in Vermont now. You seem to gravitate. You really have the seasons as also a character in your books. It feels like
mm,
as well.
mm. Yeah, I can't help but be influenced by our surroundings, and it's snowy so much of the year. A lot of my illustrations have snow in them. Um, and then I got to do a book that was an autumn one, which is another beautiful season here in Vermont and New England in general.
Is that
Um,
Fix and Stitch?
Fix and Stitch, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one. Um, yeah, it's just, yeah, I love the outdoors, and I love also bringing that to children. I think in this day and age, kids don't get as much time outside maybe, and for all the children who live in places where they don't have the access,
Right.
so I think it's important for them to learn about it and see it.
And how do you see, since you recently wrote Phil's Big Day, which came out in November of 2024, correct?
Yes.
Uh, how how have you seen children's books evolved since you started illustrating back in '98?
Um, well, they one striking thing that I find interesting is the word count, which has
Hmm.
really contracted. I mean, stories have to be pretty concise and with a low word count. Um, and there's kind of a push to be fresh and interesting and um, yeah, to do things both artistically and um, in the story, do
Right.
things in a new way, which is good. I mean, that's the nature of art.
Well, hey there. If you're enjoying our podcast, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep this show going. We love hearing from you, so any feedback is welcome. And thank you for being a part of our podcast family and for all your support. It truly means a lot to us. I want to talk a little bit about Phil's big day. So being from Vermont, and you probably know this too, Liza, is that the groundhog is actually the secondary name to the woodchuck. So it's actually, and Vermont is known for being the woodchuck state. So congratulations on making a book that fits within the Vermont nomenclature in a way.
Yeah.
And so what was your inspiration behind Phil's big day?
So during, it was right before COVID, I think. I was looking for inspiration, to just get myself drawing, give myself a little drawing project. And it was around Groundhog Day. And I thought, what would Phil do if he saw his shadow and had to go back inside for 6 more weeks? And it sort of coincided with when we were all coming in, quarantining. So I was doing these illustrations and posting them online, and they were like, he was doing all the same things that we were doing, like making sourdough and doing that Marie Kondo, cleaning your house, and learning foreign languages, to play the ukulele and all sorts of things. So I did all these illustrations, and then a friend of mine who's also an editor called me and said, what is the story behind Phil? Does he have a story? And so I thought, well, gosh, no, not yet, but he let me work on it. And so I did. And I thought, when I was growing up, I was extremely, extremely shy. And my son was too. And so I thought, like, what more horrific thing for me as a child than to have to go stand in front of, all sorts of people watching you, waiting for you to predict the weather, um, or whether or not spring would come early. So that's how the character of Phil kind of came about and how the whole thing started.
And so with that, how from the beginning? So basically, Phil's big day was kind of your COVID project, then, in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So the book came out in November 2024, and this is another thing that people don't realize, that when you create a book through a publishing house, it takes years for
Yeah.
it to go from once you get the book done and you send it off to the publisher. You got to add on a couple more years until it's actually in people's hands.
Right. I mean, first there's the miracle of selling, getting someone to buy it in the first place. And then after that, yeah, they put it in their production schedule, and it takes a couple of years.
There's books about Christmas. There's books about Halloween. Was it also a point when you noticed too, from the publishing perspective, is like there's not a lot of books about Groundhog Day?
I did notice that, but only after, I mean, the story sort of came about. It kind of had to be Groundhog Day because he was a groundhog. And then I started looking, and there really aren't. I mean, but I'm hopeful that this will be, the stories about just sort of general life too,
Right.
um, that it will be, useful beyond the holiday. And my fear is that, doing a book like this, well, there's one day when, and it's kind of a silly holiday, it's sort of an invented holiday. So anyway, I do hope it gets a little reading time beyond, February 2nd.
If people want to learn more about you and your work, if they want to follow your work, where is the best place they could go to?
they can visit my website, which is www.lizawoodruff.com. They could follow me on Instagram or
Okay.
on um, or on Facebook and Instagram. I think I'm at Liza Woodruff. And there are links also on my website where you can find me. You can link directly. I think all the way at the bottom, you might find social media links.
Right.
Um, and yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So that's where you can see, you could learn more about me, mostly on my website, I think. And when I'm working on something exciting, I post in progress pictures on Instagram and Facebook
Okay.
too. So yeah.
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 Instagram's such a great visual social media platform for artists. Yeah.
It
And
is.
and,
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about before your downloads. So people can actually come to your website at, as you said, lizawoodruff.com and check out. You also have downloads for people as well.
I do. I have this book, A Quieter Story, is about a little girl who wants to write a story, and it's hijacked by her cat, who wants a more exciting story. And so in that, I did some. There's some kind of rainy day activities and writing activities for teachers. Um, so yeah, I thought that was kind of fun. I was hoping that teachers could find a way to use it to in the classroom, and yeah, so that's, and then if you click on more, there's a link. I think there's a link in there to my silk screen. Yeah, it's how silk screens are made, because some of my some of my personal work is silkscreen prints. I
Okay.
do, yeah, I do. Yeah, if you take a look there, these are some, those are roadside wildflowers that I just painted. I like to paint, I like to do series
Oh,
of illustrations just because it keeps me going on a roll with a goal, kind of. And
right.
then I did just little watercolor studies. Um, and then the vegetables are, I painted them out of the water. For example, the beets in the middle bottom, they sort of look like radishes, but I used the beet water as paint,
Okay.
and then the beet
Oh, wow.
green water as paint for the leaves, and the artichoke water for the artichoke, and the cabbage water for the cabbage, and the onion
Okay.
water for the onion. So just little things to keep myself entertained and working. It's pretty
Right.
important. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see my silkscreen prints that I um,
Oh,
I took
yeah.
a silkscreen printing class, and I really love that. Um, so these are some of the ones that came from that.
So in a way, those vegetable paintings those are edible paintings then.
Yeah, they did not age well. The lemon one is very sticky.
Yeah. So Liza, then that means when your alligator boy book comes out in a couple, you're gonna have to come back on. We'll have to check. We'll have to chat about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to. 27
Wow.
is when it will
See,
be out.
it'll
Yeah.
be out. Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to wait for it. See.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Liza. This has been a genuine pleasure chatting with you.
Well, I feel the same way, and we will have to do it again sometime.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And and so and so you mentioned too. This is the best part about this, Liza. This is why I do this. I pre-record these. I like to edit out any of my ums, and when I like stumble upon a question, then I edit it out and be like, "Wow, Barney's so smooth with asking all these questions." Yeah, makes it sound so professional.
You're not stumbling. This is
And I find it I find it amazing too is that you focused a lot on ground because there's